Recording in progress. Okay, so welcome everybody to this edition of Print Speak. My name is Rebecca Travis. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the curator and collections manager here at Open Studio. We are so excited today to have Native Art Department International, aka Maria Hupfield and Jason Lujan, joining us today for this Print Speak talk entitled Learning by Doing, which will explore their collaborative practice. A little bit about Open Studio and Print Speak. Open Studio is an artist-run center dedicated to contemporary print. We offer accessible, inclusive, and affordable printmaking facilities, programs, and services for artists and the public across Canada and abroad. We support artists in creating and exhibiting contemporary print in an open-minded, safe, and collaborative environment. And our vision is to shape the exploration of print as essential, dynamic, and relevant to contemporary culture and creative thought. Print Speak is a virtual education series that focuses on the incredible artists whose work pushes the boundaries of print media. These talks will take you on a journey with each artist to learn about their passion for creating. You see a little point to our prints in the background here as well. I'm in the shop today, and the print to my top left is by Native Art Department International. We'll come back to that later. A little housekeeping and format notes for today. If you could put yourself on mute for the talk, that would be great. This is going to be about a 30-minute talk with a 15-minute Q&A afterwards. You're able to put your questions in the chat function on Zoom, or you can use the raised hand emoji and we'll get to you at the end of the talk. Again, today we have Native Art Department International joining us. We're very excited. This talk is programmed in connection with their current main gallery exhibition, A Practical Guide to Localization, which is showing here at Open Studio through to July 23rd. It's a great show and features some bold experiments with print alongside sculptural and installation-based work as well. We encourage you to come and see the show if you're here in Toronto. Maria and Jason, thank you so much for being part of this ongoing virtual education series. A short introduction to Native Art Department International, or NADI. NADI is a collaborative long-term project created and administered by Maria Hupfield and Jason Lujan that began in Brooklyn in 2016 and is now based in Toronto. It focuses on communications platforms and art world systems of support, while at the same time functioning as emancipation from essentialism and identity-based artwork. It seeks to circumvent easy categorization by comprising a diverse range of undertakings, such as unannounced actions, curatorial projects, video screenings, collective art making, and mixed-use installations. However, all activities contain an undercurrent of positive progress through cooperation and non-competition. Over to you, Maria and Jason.
Hey, Maria, how's it going?
Good.
All right, so I guess we'll do this art talk. I think what I want to do is I'll start off by telling a little bit about how we got involved in this exhibition, and then I'll let you take it from there with some of the works. How's that sound?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember how we got involved with this.
So we had an exhibition at Center 3, and then when Rebecca approached us, there was a particular aesthetic that Open Studio was asking about, but we weren't sure if all of the works are going to be available. So then but we still wanted to commit to exhibiting there because being so close to our studio, being so close downtown, we felt it was important. So I think you and I had a meeting and we decided that if all of the works weren't available, what we would do is create maybe a similar aesthetic situation or environment. So do you have something you wanted to look at some of the works in the gallery, and then I can chime in with any comments and maybe some in-process images?
Well, since I'm over here, I'm gonna take us around a little bit to see some of what's in the space so you can remember, a little beat. We have our little friend over here. I think all this work is untitled. They're pretty sturdy. A little, what would you call it? Our gnome?
So you call it a dwarf, and I call it an elf. And I remember the way we arrived at this is that we wanted to have sculptural elements in an exhibition. We had some ideas with reapproaching some previous works. I know the traffic barrier is one of them. Where is it? Right. So we liked this, and you wanted to look at it again, and then you took it out of storage, you unpacked it, and then you re-aestheticized it. You repainted some elements. And then the other one, I think, is the banner. It's what we were calling the banner. And that one was also an existing work that was taken up again. So that's great. That's a great traffic barrier.
Yeah, I think the thing that really struck me about the barrier when we had it at Mercer Union was really trying to figure out where to put it. And so we ended up putting it by this back entrance to barricade it, to really block it out. So it was a functional barricade. And as we talked about it, I mean, I think in New York, we saw a lot of barricades everywhere. And we're like, we love the look of these, but maybe we don't want to be setting up more barricades. And so for this iteration, I loved the spontaneity of the painting on it. But I started to think about the shape, and that was when we had talked about, remember this idea of a deconstructed barricade. Mm-hmm. So a barricade that was about kind of moving towards a different direction, about access maybe. And now that I think about it, maybe opening spaces. And that became the keystone in my mind for this iteration, that it was the opportunity to revisit this as a sculpture. And I think until we had it, even in the space, it was hard to place things, but once it was there, everything fell into place. And within a day, the exhibition came together.
Right. So starting with the barricade, that was the jumping off point to look at other existing artworks and see how else we could develop this exhibition, right?
Totally. I'm gonna see how this works. I wanna some people watching outside. the other thing about the space of a gallery. So the space of a gallery often feels detached. Like items become isolated. They're not in relationship to a person, a community, or a place. But one of the things with this work, so this was, I'll have you go back to this, but one of the things for me is our space, by adding this amazing and having the installation team back us on adding this black light and how it shifts the space from being one that's really, you know, that white cube to suddenly a space where it is day, is it night? And so I think this is another good point to refer back to, is this diptych. I know I often want to call it a print, but I know you're always like, no, it's not a print because there's only one of it. So it's a painting. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the paint being white paint for black light.
Sure.
And how we came to this.
When we were at Center 3 for a printmaking residency, and we decided we wanted to make some works there. We wanted to use the method of printmaking, the mechanical reproduction aspects, but without necessarily having to worry about replication. So this is why they're paintings, even though we use the mechanical media intended for multiple copies. We only made certain kinds, and each one is unique. They're not even variants at this point. They are literally paintings from 2 points of view. And I wanted to use ultraviolet ink and paint, so that way they had a different kind of physicality when one experienced it under changing light conditions. Natural light versus urban light versus artificial light. And also, as you know, Maria, you and I spend a lot of time discussing how our works will interact with people. We spend almost zero amount of time talking about how they'll look online. Everything is always about the in-person experience. And that's why we use a human scale, and we try to reward people for being there in person rather than virtually.
Yeah, totally.
Right? We are not about the virtual experience.
Totally. I mean, and also right now you're talking a lot to the people who are joining us. I also like it when you talk directly to me. Then it's like the two of us are alone. I'm going to come over here to this other piece, which was kind of like a breakthrough piece for us that also speaks back to the other one. So whereas the other one was really taken, I remember when our studio was on near Allen Gardens, and we went for a walk and we each had our phone and we took photos side by side. So it was the same image, the same site, but 2 different views. And then that led to this piece, which is it's just one print. So we took a former image, made it very large, and had it fit this amazing silver hide.
So I'm going to show some images. I'm going to show some images for that. Or do you want to talk about the banner first?
Yeah, let's talk about the banner. So I'm going to come over here to this banner. This is totally an aesthetic experience here. We can see some text or what looks like language on it. And if we turn it this way, I believe it's that way. Then it's backwards, right to left. If I turn it this way, this is the legible way of reading this text. But again, we're really just looking at it as an aesthetic experience. All right, Jason, why don't you share with me those slides that you put together?
Okay, let's go through some images. I'm going to share some screen. So I think I'm just going to go through this here. We'll start here. So this is us Well, I just want to give a quick shout out to our printmaking colleagues in Southern Ontario. A lot of this, actually, in this work, the banner and the printed leather untitled work would not be possible without the help of Lane at Smokestack Studios and Eric and his crew at OCAD University Printmaking and Publications. And what you're looking at is the silk screen, which Lane hooked us up with at OCAD, being checked for sizing for the print and on the print table, the vacuum table. Now let's see how this works. So there it is again. This is the silk screen. You can see the scale. It was designed to, and then there's the leather, of course, being tested. We had 4 pieces of leather all told, and each one is a variant. So it's been moved around, so the flowers are not necessarily in the same position on each piece of leather. And the leather, of course, being organic and flexible, shifts a lot too during the print process. So the screen was designed so that way there would be some overprint, so that way we could get edge to edge on these. And then I printed these with Eric, and Maria then selected the one for the exhibition. So that was the silver leather. And I think, Maria, the reason you like silver leather, you wanted to do silver leather, is to produce a similar experience as we would have with the diptychs, right? Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to go back to, and then let's see. And then there they are back in our studio on our table. So the banner, you want to talk about the banner? And this is the raw banner, the original artwork. Do you have anything you want to say about this? Is that a yes or no?
Sorry, I had to unmute. I think you have some images, right, of the original banner, which was more of a drop cloth or a tarp. Or
this is it, right? This is it right here. This is it on the table, unfolded. Originally, it was on a floor of a previous exhibition in Florida.
That's right. We had a pile of lumber that halfway through the show was going to become a structure, and all the work on the walls was then going to be mounted on the structure. So in the meantime, this tarp or beautifully painted design element would serve as kind of a plate for those, right? To show that they are also art. They're not just construction materials that have been haphazardly placed.
Right. So you were like, well, let's pull this out. So we looked at it, and then this is when I'm going to scroll back quickly to the auto sequence here. This is where we are burning your image. You wrote the text. I took it to OCAD. They loaned us a screen. So we burned it. We burned it into the on the light table, and then I have some pictures. Let's see. That's the screen being washed. That's Eric over there. He was very hands-on. It's clearly his shop. And then the size of the screen meant we had to print it in sections so that it wouldn't smudge. The frame wouldn't touch wet paint. So we did sections of 3. This was actually done at OCAD Textiles. They have a really long table designed specially for printing balsa fabric. Let's see if this video works. And then I didn't want to be there. I didn't want this to be a multi-day operation. So I spent about an hour just kind of blow drying all of the paint until it was ready. And that's it, your favorite video there. Me blow drying it. And then finally we were able to finish it. And this is it in our studio. I wrapped it up, I rolled it up, handed it off to you, and did not know what I was going to be looking at when I walked into the exhibition space.
Totally. Okay, so this next part, I know you're not really gonna like, but you will like it. But I'm just gonna share something here. So this was.
Cool. I wanted to answer this question. This is a pretty easy one for me because I say this every day. Miigwech Keshe Manadu. Miigwech Keshe Manadu. And this is different than Gichi Manadu, which means great spirit. Keshe is kind, benevolent, with unconditional love. So really what you're saying there is Miigwech, thank you, kind spirit. Miigwech, benevolent mystery. Miigwech Keje Manadu.
So that was the source and inspiration. I remember, so one of the things about collaborating together is really having clearly defined roles. So I remember when you asked me, I need something to put on this banner, I'll print it. You let me know. And I came up with this, saw this, found the Slavics, and I'm like, Jason, will this work? Are you good with this? And you're like, totally. And then shifted it a little, and here we are. I know we don't preference the late, in our work, we don't always point to or point out the origins of some of the indigenous content, but I think that, I know for my own work, it's often codified and it's there for people who are rewarded when they discover it. And also I think, now that I'm back in Toronto, I think a lot more about the importance of language, and that's something that you and I have both kind of shared thinking on. So I just thought it would be good to recall and bring forth some of that language and the value of it.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the phrase benevolent mystery sums my wife up very, very well. It couldn't be more accurate. All right, so I think we're running to the end of our speaking point. Let's talk about the territorial acknowledgement, or the lack of it, for this program. We actually, during the rehearsal, Maria and I both asked Open Studio to not read their territorial acknowledgement. We felt that there's a lot of conflict between Maria and myself as individuals about the purpose and efficacy of that. But more to the point, the name of this program is, what's the name of the program, Maria?
Our program?
Yeah.
Oh, making, hold on.
Doing, it's about doing. It's about doing. And so we felt it would be a better setting to just simply ask, have Open Studio give a short talk about what they're doing, what their labor is, what their actions have been, and how they're leading the way forward. And then we'll go into Q&A. So Rebecca.
Hold on, before we go to Rebecca, this is really important. So today's talk, learning by doing. And yes. I think this is also something, so the idea of to embody, to, we often talk about this in education as experiential learning. Mm-hmm. So it's an idea of moving past the theory of things, just talking about it, using words, but rather living it, which really connects with this idea of like an oral tradition, or coming from a place where to write things down is to forget about them, right? And so that's something as a performance artist, I feel really strongly about it and I really value. All right, and on that note, Rebecca.
All right, thank you so much for passing it back to me. And it was Learning by Doing was the name of your talk. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to talk about what we're doing here at Open Studio. For a long time, we've had an established connection with the West Baffin Eskimo Co-op in Kinnaid, Cape Dorset. So partly that connection is forged because there is a printmaking studio up there. And we have an Inuit artist residency that we have run we've done 2 iterations so far. The last one was just before the pandemic in 2020 with Kovi and actor Pudlat. And we're actually working on our next iteration of that residency for the upcoming year. And that involves having an artist from Cape Dorset come down and work with us out of the studio for 2 weeks and create new artwork. And a lot of the focus of what we're trying to do with our programs is not just about exhibition, but it's about learning and access to the studios as well. So through that residency, the last 2 participants have actually worked in screen printing, because that's a medium that we're able to facilitate here at Open Studio that they actually don't have at the printmaking studio in Kinnaid. So stay tuned for more updates as to what is happening with our next iteration of that, but that's going to be with Lucy Seiler. The timeline is still kind of moving based on the pandemic and travel restrictions, but we're really excited to to be working with her on that. With that in mind, in terms of creating more access points and doing rather than just saying, we established a BIPOC artist residency last year. It was open to anyone regardless of whether they had any printmaking experience or not. And we're building more and more mentorship and education opportunities into our programs to try and make the studio more accessible. Because we know that printmaking is also has some technical barriers in place that don't make it always the easiest medium to access. So we have one BIPOC resident that comes to visit us every year. They get to work in the studio, but they also receive education opportunities and mentoring as part of that. And also 10 people who apply to that residency are also offered an education class. So we're trying to roll our education and our ability to run those classes into also the access we're able to provide to people. We also just ran a virtual residency. I'm not sure if it's something we will do again, but we hope to. And that also gave access to artists outside of the GTA as well. So trying to be less downtown centric. There's so many artists making amazing work that aren't necessarily based right downtown here in Toronto. And we're actually showing the results of that residency on our feature wall at the moment. So if you come and see Jason and Maria's amazing show, you can also see the 3 artists who were part of that residency this year showing on our feature wall right now as well. That's basically what we're kind of moving towards. We're also working towards a full year of BIPOC programming for the year 2023-24. So that will start in July 2023. We just closed our submissions for residencies. So we are going to be programming those shortly. And we will have a call for exhibitions go out in September for that programming year. So anybody who is interested in applying to that, please join our mailing list and follow us on Instagram. I know my colleague Laura is going to post some things in the chat for links so that people can sign up. And yeah, just get in touch if you have any questions about anything that we're working with moving forward. We're more than happy to answer those.
Thank you, Rebecca. So I see there's a question here about, then is it not a monoprint, Jason?
I don't know the work that they're referring to.
So I think that came up when you were talking about the diptych, and you referred to it as a painting because there is just one of them. And I'm kind of interested actually for you to talk a little bit more about kind of your definition of it.
Sure, it's 2 separate silk screens, not one silk screen repositioned. So each silk screen has a unique image, and that's what makes it a diptych. And it's a painting because it uses paint on a structured surface, and there are no other reproductions of it.
One of the things I really liked what you're saying about that diptych is that one of the images, they essentially look the same when you're standing in front of the artwork. And again, as you were saying, you really have to come to the exhibition to experience it in person. But actually each image is different, and one is taken by yourself and one is taken by Maria of the same location. And I think that's really fascinating kind of visualization of how the 2 of you work together in your collaborative practice, also while still maintaining individuality and in your own practices as well. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Maria?
Yeah. So yeah, it's paint, not ink. So that's something to do with Jason. Jason's artistic process. Let me back up there. His process, he often trained as a painter. I've often seen him work in this way where he's using flash paint or some kind of paint, which typically would really muck up the screen. So he needs to work really fast. And so that was a strategy we applied. So the thing is, because we're not, even though we're both familiar with printmaking, and Jason has your undergrad was in printmaking, wasn't it? That we're familiar with it. But once we were at Center 3, we just went, we tried all kinds of things. And actually I found in that process, when I was making prints, I was actually working in a way where I was layering images, doing multiple prints, placing the image in different positions with different colors, and then letting it dry and going back with another screen. So things became very layered as well. So I think all the advantages of printmaking to be able to make multiples was a way that I intuitively worked against. I didn't want to work in that way for some reason. But we did, however, manage to have one limited edition that we did pull off, which is the one that's behind Rebecca. I guess in terms of our separate practices, it really, we formalize and how we definitely have meetings where we sit down and we're like, let's talk about the artist talk. Okay. Let's talk about how we want to address the territorial acknowledgement. Okay. And then in the studio, it really is, I want to do this, I want to do that. And we balance it out so that the workload is equal. Not one person is working for the other, but collectively we're working from our strengths. So Jason always likes to make me paint for some reason. I end up painting all these things. But he's really good with color. So I think we also push each other outside of our comfort zone sometimes.
Yes, Maria, I make you paint. I grab your hand and I make you paint. Absolutely. You're really good at it. Maybe that's part of it. You know, I can make you do stuff you're really good at.
I definitely like that you were saying that partly this collaborative process allows both of you, when you're working in your studio, which is where Jason, you're actually in the studio right now, but you sort of have separate sides. So again, there's that sort of space of working together, but you are divided within that space, but looking across at each other and being like, oh, I kind of really want to work in that medium. I liked that description of this project, allowing you to kind of cross over and work outside of the media you would usually work with.
Yeah, so Native Art Department, I think Maria likes to tell the story. And so Maria, please break in whenever you're ready. It started off as, the genesis was that Maria and I were just sharing a studio space. And then we noticed that Maria would be in there during the day, and then I would usually come in the evenings, and we could see what had changed during the times that we were absent. And we found ourselves just, I think maybe unconsciously kind of responding to those changes. So it seemed inevitable that at some point we would want to collaborate together. But we didn't want to run, the thing about artists is it takes a while for artists to realize that collaboration is such a liberating experience. We've asked artists to collaborate with us, and there's often some hesitation early on, depending on how well they know us, because they think, the artist, I imagine, thinks, I'm going to have to edit myself or risk a kind of misrepresentation. You know, someone will see the work and go, well, this doesn't look like what you do. Or is this what you're doing now? And it just, you know, creates a lot of interference. But the truth is that as an artist, if you get rid of any kind of ego, you could actually be more creatively free and unconstrained. And that's where Maria and I, that's what we kind of really work towards when we collaborate with each other, is we worry less about the impact it's going to have on our individual practice. And we care more about keeping things interesting for ourselves and for each other. And yet somehow certain elements of our individual practices sometimes do intermingle with just our projects as we pursue them. Right, Maria?
Yeah. And I also think that, like, for us, our collaboration, I mean, Jason, I've heard you say that before, but for me, I've come to think of it also as a sort of like couples therapy and an exercise in communication, where we have to really communicate what our expectations are, what our goals are, what we like, what we don't like, and meet there in the middle. So it's, you know, I think because we both love art, it's a chance to really center that. I also, there's a comment about media and how you define a different, whether it's painting or print process. So thank you for that comment about print not having to be multiples. Thanks for bringing that expertise into our conversation.
In response, it can be whatever I call it.
Very true. The artist can define the work. I think one of the other things that was really interesting, talking about sort of collaboration, when we talked about it a bit at the exhibition reception, was this idea of like opposites that come through the work. So there's both of you working together, but having your own practices. We talked a bit about the lighting in the space with the black lights. It's sort of somewhere between night and day. And you also talked about that mix of like urban environment and more sort of natural environment. Can you talk a little bit about maybe like how moving your studio has affected the kind of environment that you've put together for the space?
Maria, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think that one of the things we really push hard against is how, you know, in the city, there's this myth that cities are, you know, away from nature. But now that I'm doing this inaugural residency at with Artworks TO, when I met with Parks and Rec, they told me right away, they said, well, we like to say that Toronto is in the middle of this beautiful natural garden space, which is all of, you know, and so that really shifts the way we think of our relation to place. I'm starting to veer off track, Jason, but
no, you're not. It's good. I mean,
I think for us, being from the Great Lakes, Jason being from the desert, we feel really comfortable together on neutral territory in an urban environment where we can choose our participation, but also that we can acknowledge where we are. So I think urban's important, but regardless of, in the natural world, that's something we're always mindful of, especially in the city where we have to really cultivate that. So that's a big part of just our day to day. But in terms of where we are now, we're in Chinatown, which is amazing. We really needed the center being in the middle of downtown where we could walk from where we live and be around all kinds of things that felt, you know, Chinatown has its own specificity about it, but that we wanted to be present too in the city. Jason, do you want to talk a little more about that?
Yeah, so one of the things is Maria, kind of, you kind of cut things a little short. Maria, of course, is from the woodlands of Perry Sound, just around the Muskokas. I'm from Marfa, Texas, which is the desert. And these are both environments that each other, we feel slightly, I guess, wary about being in the other. Like I've been with Maria 10 years and I still sometimes hesitate before swimming in a lake. But the city it brings us together because a city is hostile towards artists. It's actually hostile towards people when you really think about it. So having each other to navigate and survive and live in a city and make art and be creative it's a really good stimulus for us. So with our studio, we wanted a studio that was relatively, I guess, in an area where we could be stimulated by the city. And we can't think of a better location than here in downtown Toronto in Chinatown, where you can step outside and it just happens to be, you can go just a few blocks in either direction and you're in a completely different neighborhood with a completely different kind of energy. And as we run our errands and we do things, we bring that energy off the street into our studio and turn it into work.
That's great. We've just had a couple more questions come through the chat, and then I think we'll wrap it up after that. We got a question from Laura saying that she sees a lot of use of reflective surfaces and silver in your work. In terms of materials, can you elaborate as to why you're drawn to these types of items or materials in particular?
It's you, Maria.
Well, quite simply, I work with a lot of industrial felt, and it's very hot. So in the summer, I tend to work with shiny reflective materials, which is kind of the opposite. So absorption versus reflection. That's my simple answer to that. But we've also used it in previous work, and maybe Jason, you can share one of those works and how we used it and why in that case.
Right, so the material is specific. So Maria had mentioned she uses reflective material, but Native Art Department prefers to use a slightly more specific term, which is a mirrored materials. That way, what that does is it's designed in person. If you're looking at one of our works or you're in one of our kind of environments, you'll see a reflection of yourself or you'll see the reflection of the space, and you'll see if you're alone or if you're not alone. And that's designed to make you be aware, situationally aware, that your body occupies space and so do other people, and that you're having a shared experience in one of our spaces. And that is a takeaway from living in the city, where often you have reflective windows and you're constantly being twinned as you walk down the street or have a bus drive by you.
I guess we see that in your masks as well, because someone asked about your masks and attire, and that seems like a really lovely extension of that reflection. And
I don't know what you're, that question doesn't compute. What do you mean? I don't understand that. Okay. What else?
Well, I think what we'll do is probably wrap it up there. Unless anyone has any last questions, now is the time. But otherwise, we'll wrap up at this point. Thanks so much, Jason and Maria, first and foremost, for giving us such an amazing talk and for activating both your studio space and the gallery space here. It was unlike any print speak we've done before, so thank you. I really encourage you to come down and see Jason and Maria's show. As I said, it is up until July 23rd. It really demands to be seen in person. There's nothing like seeing artwork in person, but in particular, this show is really designed for you to be part of the space. So please do come and see it. Thank you for joining this Print Speak session, everybody, and taking time out of your day. If you missed any of our previous Print Speak talks, they're actually available on our YouTube channel, and this one we'll edit it and we'll upload it soon. So thanks for joining. We do have one further Print Speak session coming up. That is on July 21st, and it will be with artist Mohammed Tabesh. I think Laura is just putting a link in the chat there because we just released our Eventbrite for that as well. If you'd like to know more about Open Studio, you can check out our website. And as I mentioned earlier, the best way to stay in touch with our programming, all of our residency submissions and exhibition submissions, is to follow us on Instagram or join our mailing list. As always, our Print Speak sessions are free, but donations are welcome. So there's also a link for donations in the chat as well. Other than that, thanks so much, everybody. Thank you again, Jason and Maria. And I hope everyone's able to get out into the sun this afternoon and enjoy the afternoon.
Bye.
So take care, stay safe. Thanks so much. Bye.